Today's class will discuss about dispatch servlet workflow, how the dispatch servlet will delegate the request and response objects. Okay. Dispatch servlet is located in org.springframework.web.servlet.dispatch servlet. The dispatch servlet of Spring Web MVC framework is an implementation of front controller and is a Java servlet component. That is, it is a servlet front for Spring Web MVC applications. Dispatch servlet is the front controller class. Dispatcher servlet is the front controller class that receives all incoming HTTP client requests. For the Spring Web MVC application. In addition to that, dispatcher servlet is responsible for initializing the Spring Web MVC framework for our application. And it is a servlet implemented as a subtype of HTTP servlet like normal servlet or any other servlet. I'm sorry. Dispatch servlet is also required to be configured in our web application. Like in a servlet, in deployment descriptor, in the bracket, web.xml file. This is the syntax, this is the piece of code where we can declare the dispatch servlet information as part of web.xml file. In the dispatch servlet, here I can configure the init parameters we can configure the initialization parameters. We can configure the initialization parameters. We can configure the initialization parameters to alter the behavior of the dispatch servlet with respect to locating the different Spring Bean XML file. Now, take this. All the requests for this context whose path is, whose servlet path ends with Spring. Currently in our project we are doing ends with the login.spring. If you see here, so we are doing the, after clicking the submit button we are doing login.spring. Spring extension are dispatched by web container to the dispatch servlet. So this is way internally how Spring dispatch servlet works. We'll see the dispatch servlet initialization stage. Dispatcher servlet initialization. While initializing the dispatch servlet, please read a very important concept. While initializing the dispatch servlet, it creates web application context. It creates web application context implementation class instance. The web application context is responsible to locate the Spring Bean XML file. The web application context is responsible for Spring Bean XML file. Spring Bean XML file. The dispatcher servlet internally uses the web application context for accessing various frameworks framework objects.
Internally,
the dispatch servlet uses the web application context internally dispatch servlet uses the web application context for accessing various framework objects that are used to execute the workflow for handling the request. The special framework objects that are initialized using the web application context, we'll see now. One is multi-part resolver. Local resolver. Theme resolver. Handler mapping. Handler adapter. Handler exception resolver. Request to view name translator. View resolver. So can you repeat the first statement, last statement, what I discussed so far? No.
Yes, Chaitanya. The dispatcher servlet internally uses the web application context for accessing various framework objects.
Yes. Wait. Various frameworks are, this is multi-part resolver, local resolver, theme resolver, handler mapping, handler adapter, handler exception resolver, and request to view name translator, view resolver. Okay, now go continue.
Framework objects that are used to execute workflow for handling requests. The special framework objects that are initialized using the web application context.
Yes. So internally, these are the dispatch server top. The dispatch server internally uses some frameworks from the via web application context. These frameworks are called as, this framework is nothing but the class names are called or types are called as multi-part resolver, local resolver, handler mapping, handler adapter, and view resolver. They are very important concepts. Okay. Please read on. When dispatcher subnet prepares the request, dispatcher subnet prepares the request, dispatch alert prepares the request, context by setting the framework objects into the request scope. Here, the framework objects are Here, the framework objects are web application context, locale resolver, comma, theme resolver. These objects are set into the request scope to make them available to handle and view objects. So that the handler or view objects can use these objects to communicate with the framework okay. Now we are going to how internally that will locate the handlers. Load handler objects. Everything will again, if you see the example, then only you will understand clear area. I will show you example. Don't worry. Timing the triggers, very important. After preparing the request context, the dispatches are led basically there are different phases we have when you load in the dispatch selected object. Phases. First one is prepare the request context. They are the very internal logic. Nobody will tell this one. Please write down. Internal context. Next one is locate the handler. Third one is execute interceptor pre-handle methods. Pre-handle methods. Handle exception. Fourth one is handling exception. Fifth one is Fourth one is invoke handler objects. Execute. Fifth one is interceptor. Post. Handle methods. Seventh one is rendering the view. Locate the handler again. We have different parts again. After preparing the request context, the dispatcher let locate the handler that can handle this request. The dispatcher let uses registered handler mappings. Register handler mapping. See here diagram. Registered handler mappings. That can handle this request. That can handle this request. To take the request, it will prepare the by using the publication context, it will prepare the request object, request scope, and it will send the request to handler mapping. The dispatcher select uses the registered handler mappings and collect the handler execution chain objects. Handler execution chain objects. The handler execution chain object encapsulate and the handler execution chain object encapsulate the handler interceptor we have in the Spring framework we have different handler mappings are there. Handler mapping next point. Handler mapping is responsible for mapping the incoming request handler mapping is responsible for mapping the incoming request to the handler that can handle the request. When the next one, when the dispatch subnet receives the request, when the dispatch subnet receives the request, it delegates the request to the handler mapping. It will identify to which mapping you want to do. First of all, okay. Dispatch will receive the request. It delegates to delegate the request to the handler mapping. Which indicates the appropriate handler execution chain that can handle the request.
Which indicates?
Which indicates the appropriate handler execution chain that can handle the request. The Spring built-in handler mapping implementations are the Spring built-in handler mapping implementations are being named URL handler mapping, simple URL handler mapping, controller context name handler mapping, next one is commons path map handler mapping, the bin name URL handler mapping is nothing but in the scenario when we have to add the employee or remove the employee, there are two options we have. Okay, I mean to say there are two buttons we have in the page. One is for add EMP, one is for remove EMP. Okay, here add EMP, remove EMP methods. If you click on add EMP, I should execute slash add EMP dot string. If you click on remove EMP, I should execute remove EMP dot string. As part of my project, I have configured my controller like this. So I can say I have two controller object now. One is for add employee controller, and I have one more controller for you add emp dot string here, remove emp dot string. So it will navigate to different controller called as remove. I have two control objects I have written here. Remove controller, remove emp controller. To maintain these two in Spring, we need to use a handler object. What is that? We need to use a handler object. Bean ID, equal to handler mapping class equal to bean name URL handler mapping. That's it. Please read on. The org dot spring framework dot web dot servlet dot handler dot bean name URL handler mapping is one of the implementation of handler mapping interface. The implementation defines the navigation strategy that map the request URL servlet path to the bean names. That map the request URL please in the bracket take slash add emp.spring remove emp.spring request URL servlet path to the bean names. This handler mapping strategy is very simple and it's powerful. Okay.
After implementation strategy, what is it? The implementation strategy?
Who is this?
Suguna? I mean, I'm not that much fast in typing.
This handler mapping strategy is very simple but powerful. I have a class again called as simple URL mapping handler mapping simple URL handler mapping. Please read it. What did write on take heading of previous notes take heading of bean name URL handler mapping. For this you take heading of simple URL handler mapping. Interview point of view they will ask you what is bean name URL handler mapping, how to use them, and what will happen if I use that handler mapping. First question. What is bean name URL handler mapping, and how to use, when to use, where to use, where you use in your project. Okay, next one. Simple URL handler mapping is one of the implementation of handler mapping interface. This locates the handler or controller in the bracket controller by request URL servlet path by request URL servlet path to the mappings configured. Property name, mappings prop. Here you can see the property. I can directly add slash add emp dot spring. And the class name you can call it as a add emp. We can have separate bin object. Just example purpose I'm telling you, okay? Same example we are going to discuss it. So I have two bin objects, add emp, remove emp, add emp controller, remove emp controllers, two separate classes I have. I'm going to use simple URL handler mapping, means it will automatically fetch that. It automatically connect like this. If user click on add button or user click on remove button, in bin name URL handler mapping we are accessing different way, right? Whereas simple URL handler mapping we are going to handle within that handler mapping itself. Clear so far? Other handler mappings are not that much important as part of the real-time scenario. We will use mostly simple URL or bin name URL handler mapping. Okay. Any questions so far?
No, Chaitanya.
In the login controller, you may be seeing about the modular view. We'll have a small discussion on this. If in the point of view you'll ask, right, what new project I'm going to give the project to you guys, or else we are going to develop the project once you are up and running with Spring MVC. That's what I want you to be familiar with all the UI technologies. We are going to develop a very big project within a short period of time. Guys, block your time for that, and maybe it will be next week. The model view is a value object designed to hold model view, making it possible for a handler to return both model and view objects. Both model and view in a single object. It's a single value. Dispatches are led using the special framework display select using the special framework objects as view resolver, the resolver special framework is nothing but view resolver and view and view. The view is an object that can describe a view name in the form of string. Tomorrow's class will see how the view resolvers will work, how the exact handler mappings will work, how to validate the project, how to validate the user data, and also we have one pending example. It is we need to finish this one also. So in this example only we are talking about we'll try to talk about how the handle mappings exactly used, and again how the different view resolvers are there. There are many view resolvers are available in the market, so we can see best of one of the like JSTL view, and mostly we'll use the JSTL view, JSF view. There are many are there. Okay, we'll see one by one. Tomorrow's class, don't miss. Tomorrow's class is very important. Please don't miss the class tomorrow. Any questions so far?